excited for tonight. I'm excited because I I've just been kind of musing on what it is that we would be talking about this evening. And I've had a few moments throughout today that just made me excited. And so I'm excited to explore them together with you. One of the biggest things that I just have had on my mind over the last probably week and a half, um, maybe even more so, has been this whole concept of experiential living. And y'all, I had this kind of come to me pretty much for the first time 4 years ago, where I felt like all of a sudden I was truly experiencing the present moment. And this moment was very visceral for me. I was actually walking my puppy Zeus. He is an Eastern German Shepherd puppy, and he belongs to my former husband now. So when I say he was, I'm assuming and praying and hoping he's still alive and well, but he's not with me anymore. So I was taking him for a walk, and I decided to leave my phone home and just be so present in the moment. And this was kind of in this awkward in between time where my husband wasn't sure if he was going to stay or leave. And I was at home alone, kind of tending to the house, tending to the dog, and he was living with his brother and just deciding if he was going to stay or leave. And so I decided to leave my phone at home and just be completely in the present moment, completely undistracted. And while I was walking him, all of a sudden I just felt the breeze on my face. And I noticed the texture of the clouds and just kind of watched them race across the sky. And I I saw the leaves changing color and just how bright they were, and I just felt so much like in now, in the present moment. And in that experience, I felt like I was coming alive and coming awake in a way that I just hadn't really since I was a kid. When you're a kid and you don't before phones, it's very visceral the experience you have as a child. The world is just big and bright and beautiful. And I hadn't experienced that for the majority of my adult life at the time. I was 28 when I had this time of my husband leaving and just kind of wondering um if he was going to stay or leave, and this time of just kind of indecision, but also this time of awakening. And in that process, it was so there's something about pain that heightens our awareness to pretty much anything. I remember in even the early days after my brother-in-law was killed, it was like every single thing just touched a nerve in the best and worst ways. Like the smallest, most beautiful little thing would just get me on the verge of tears, seeing a mother with her daughter or seeing two people in love or whatever it was. It was like the most purest form would conjure so much joy and conjure so much emotion and conjure so much presence of being. It was like it could really call forth my own just full whole presence in that moment. And ever since then, I've really sought to continue to cultivate, how do I keep my body, my mind, my soul, my spirit awake and alert rather than letting one part shut off and go to sleep. And this whole process of vertical alignment, I taught this framework last week in the Foundations of Knowing workshop, and again this week in the workshop. And I just was revisiting it before I hopped on here because this process of vertical alignment, so much of it, the principle of it, there's the practice and then the principle. And the principle of vertical alignment is bringing every part of you and me into alignment under the hierarchy of our ideal, having created this idea and this concept and this persona in our mind of who do we want to live and be and act and how do we want to show up in the world. So our ideal, bringing everything under the hierarchy of our ideal, but then underneath the divine himself, so always in subservience to God. And in this process of vertical alignment, I've really kind of the framework of it when I get deeper is activating every part of my intelligence, every part of me, and turning my body, mind, soul, spirit online every morning, because it's so easy when we go into work to only activate our intelligence, our intellectual intelligence, our IQ. That's what we've been taught to turn on every single day. We're not taught to turn on the EQ. We're not taught to turn on the intelligence of even our physical body. And the best example when I talk about physical intelligence is the book The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. He's a psychiatrist who coined the term PTSD because before him, vets were being put in psych wards because people had no idea what was happening to these guys who would all of a sudden be totally it was like they were taken to another dimension and they would just be freaking out. And it's like, what is going on? We're just watching the fireworks, but that loud noise would take them back to Vietnam. And they didn't understand how the body literally holds an intelligence of past experiences and past data that shows up in the present moment. And our brain can't tell the difference of time. So when it hears a loud noise and it has unprocessed trauma from the past, it thinks the past is happening now. And so we've got our intellectual intelligence, our emotional intelligence, our physical intelligence, we've got our spiritual intelligence. And so in vertical alignment on a daily basis, I will turn on with intention each one of these intelligences and kind of activate it. And I experienced this again when I was kind of in those early moments of pain. And so while that was kind of natural, it almost in heightened pain was heightened sensitivity and heightened awareness for all of my intelligences. But now I have to, when I'm not in the throes of pain, I have to be intentional to turn it on. And so as I go about every single morning, turning on and awakening every part of me so that I can experience a truly holistic and a really experiential life, so that I'm not living with part of me shut off like I did for the majority of my life, I have to also be intentional with tomorrow and intentional with, okay, well, how do I want to live? So I want to live with every part of me turned on, with every intelligence activated. But how do I want to live as I experience business? How do I want to live as I experience family? And as I've been thinking about this, this is the perfect time to be asking this conversation because we've got a handful of days until the end of 2025. All of the sudden, it's the end of the year. And so I'm sitting here like, okay, gosh, like, what do I want to accomplish? What do I want to achieve? And as I was thinking through what are my goals through the end of the year, I just had this reframe. And I wanted to talk about it tonight and share it with you because I'm actually going to dedicate most of tomorrow to actually answer these questions for myself. So I wanted to share them with you and take it and do what you will with it. But tomorrow I'm effectively putting myself in retreat mode where I'm like, let me shut out all of my inputs and just sit with some of these questions, because it is so easy for this season, this wonderful, I was listening to Christmas music today and it was so happy, but it's so easy for this time to pass by us where we're like, oh my gosh, today it's November 7th. What the heck? The year's gone by so fast. Tomorrow it's going to be December 31st. So it's like, okay, how do I take control, take advantage, and live with so much intention so that I experience every day awake, aware, fully experiencing life to the visceral extent that I possibly can. One of my favorite lines in a song is that I want to live this one wild life. I want to rip it apart. Like, I just want to engage with life in such a visceral way, but I have to be awake. I have to be alert, and every single part of me needs to be turned on. So I've been considering, how do I do that? And so today, as I was considering, okay, I want to live experientially throughout every single day through the end of the year. I remembered a conversation that I had with Chris Mercer. For those of you who don't know him, he is an expert in measurement marketing and recently really, really come to kind of just be conquering the AI game. And I had him on the Knowing Show 2 different times over the last month. And he brought in this concept of experiential prompting with AI. And I have been using this type of mentality towards the way that I'm handling and engaging with different AI tools, and it has blown me away. And so just a quick summary, and I go read his stuff, but for my interpretation of when he's come on the show. It's effectively, this is the most powerful machine. It has all of the data. And so why would I try to control it by saying, ChatGPT, for example, I want you to create an email. I want to make these points. I want to be sure that the client understands XYZ. Instead, the complete reframe is, ChatGPT, I want to create an experience for my client. I want them to feel cared for. I want them to really feel like I'm an authority on the subject. I want them to feel prompted to go deeper on the topic and really feel like I'm pulling things out of them. I want to create, or so that could be, for example, for an email. For another experience, actually, which I did, we created a video for one of our clients, a branding video around who they are, what they do, who they serve. And so I asked ChatGPT to help me create an experience for the end customer, and it was specifically for facility managers in an educational facility. So we're creating an experience. And so rather than me telling ChatGPT, we want to create a video on YouTube that's going to geofence schools in the Maryland area, instead it's, hey, I want to actually effectively resonate with these facility managers. I want to be in front of them. I want them to feel, what did I say? I wanted them to feel a semblance of remembering why they do their job in the first place. I want them to feel like we see them, we respect them, we understand the way in which they show up, this sense of stewardship that they have. So I really kind of like closed my eyes and pretended I was that person. And what kind of experience do I want them to have with our company? So I didn't give them any direction in terms of the modality, the the vehicle in which we would be engaging with them. And then I asked them to just share, like, how would you embellish this experience, and how would you encourage us as the company to engage with them? And it gave us this amazing marketing plan, and it was awesome. And so basically, the reason why I want to give that example is because this is how I want to be engaging with life. And for the most part, like even months ago, I woke up one morning and I just had this thought of, what would it look like if I was to engage today as someone who was grateful? And I had the best day. It was such a fun day. And even today I chatted with my sister on the phone, and we were just exchanging ideas back and forth of, life is so beautiful. It's so full of opportunities. And it's also so hard, and it's so full of, like, there's so much bad news anywhere you turn. And so what kind of experience do I want to have today? And it's not just what kind of experience do I want to have in life, because that's so broad, that's so general, that's kind of overwhelming. And so instead, it's today. What's the experience I want to have? Who do I want to be today? And it's not, man, it's just, I don't want to go negative on what it's not. What it is living with intention, creating with intention, and then identifying, how do I actually need to tweak maybe even some natural and maybe default behaviors to ensure that I can actually live kind of on this straight and narrow path, and then bring that default behavior into alignment. And when we say bring it into alignment, it really is like, ooh, I'm actually defaulting towards judgment for somebody else. I actually don't want to live that way. I'm going to bring that back into alignment. And so some of the kind of sound bites that have been helpful for me, and thought processes that have been helpful in this regard, is one particular sentiment, which is, where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And so if I don't want my energy going towards judgment, I'm just literally actually not going to be placing my attention there. Even tonight, I went out to a restaurant, and I walked in, and there was just so many beautiful people. And I was like, oh, look at their outfit. And I was just having fun, people watching. But then I realized, I was like, you know what? I actually don't want to be spending my energy this way. I actually would rather have a meaningful conversation. And it was just so interesting kind of having this like out of body experience, watching me and realizing just how much power we have over our experience here in this present moment of, well, what do I want it to look like? And so this question, as we look towards the end of the year, and I'm actually going to do a little bit a recon, how many days left in 2025. Y'all, we officially have 54 days in 2025. We have 54 days left in the year. And so our question is, okay, how do I want to live those 54 days? What do you want? What do you want to experience? What do you want to experience on Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving week with your immediate family? What do I want to experience with my extended family? What do I want to experience with my business that week? And so looking at family as a unique vertical, and even on I guess Thursday, yesterday, I was hosting the Foundations of Knowing, and I gave this example of you're the nucleus. And imagine concentric circles moving out from you. And with each level of the concentric circle is the degree of intimacy and closeness with different parts of your life. So the most intimate is obviously the first concentric circle around you, the next layer of intimacy after that, and it extends outward. And so then from that level of you're the nucleus, you've got concentric circles moving outward, now divided up into a pie chart. So effectively, just to break it down, let's say you've got one piece of the pie, one sliver that is family. Well, the most intimate like concentric circle, that piece of that concentric circle coming to you, that's going to be your immediate family. Maybe that's your partner, your kids, if you have any. The next level out, maybe that's your parents, your siblings. Next level out from there, grandparents, cousins, if you get my drift. So then on the next slice might be business. Again, you're the nucleus. And so then the most intimate circle towards you is that your business partner? Is that maybe your vendors if you're a small business? Is it actually your CEO, your chief of staff, wherever you are in the business? Understanding those concentric circles and who's closest to you and then working your way outward, it's really helpful to kind of outline that first. Here am I. Like, what is the actual experience I want to have when it comes to my family? And then also my business, and then financially. And I mean, gosh, it can be broken up into friends and community during the holiday season and this time of year. And ultimately it's what do I want in every single regard? What are the actual goals that I might have to achieve and accomplish? We've got 54 days. That's not that many. And it's also a decent amount of time to really get some stuff done and really accomplish a good amount of stuff. I mean, even just I mapped out 2 or 3 weeks ago, I decided, I'm going to host a workshop every other week through the end of the year. And these workshops have already been absolutely incredible. And I've gotten so much clarity about 2026 just from doing these workshops. So perhaps a goal for you with business through the end of the year is I really want to get clarity. I want to do some market research. Y'all, hosting events gives great market research. It gives great information and insight into what are the primary problems that your customers are having. I've hosted knowing retreats. I've hosted these workshops. What else have I done? I've done the sequence of vertical alignment emails. It's been so helpful just having conversations with people. I did the one-to-one knowing arena where I've worked with people, executives in a one-to-one fashion. And it's been so helpful getting to know people in different environments to different degrees of intimacy, right? Obviously, the one-to-one is like the closest in the nucleus. The retreat is the next closest. Workshop is kind of far out. I also hosted the knowing dinners. That was really, really helpful. Wherever I would travel, I would host these knowing dinners and invite people to join. And so it was offering the greatest opportunity to get to know people that I never would otherwise, have pretty intense and intimate conversations, being able to guide the dinner topics and conversations. And then it allowed for additional networking and really being able to kind of bring people together and just honestly breathe life into these dinners where it was like 2.5, 3 hours of just was like life giving life to other people. And we all walked away so full and it was awesome. So I've been able to do a lot of market research. So if that's a goal for you in the business vertical by the end of the year, all right, what are some ways that you can do market research? I just give you 4 ideas of how to do that. And then with family, what are some goals there? What do you actually want to look like? Like if you were to close your eyes and picture, I want to experience peace with my family. I want to experience something really epic, you know? What do you want when it comes to your immediate family? And y'all, it was so helpful. So the way that I really kind of dove into this, I guess now a month ago, I wrote my eulogy when I turned 30. I wrote my eulogy about what do I want others to say about me at the end of my life. And we actually moved through this exercise yesterday in the Knowing workshop, which was so cool. And it was so fun to do it with other people. And it was interesting, the response. I think everyone was a little bit startled. Like they were like, this is actually really hard. That some people really didn't enjoy it. And so, oh yes, and Qasim, you just said the known executive was really, really helpful. Yes, the known executive, the known founder, that was also another way, that was another activity, that was another knowing experience to garner market research and also just like, let me test out this type of service in multiple different modalities, right? Multiple different formats and ways. And so when it comes to what I was talking about yesterday with writing our eulogy, I wrote my eulogy specifically of what would I want my individual people in my family to say about me if I were to die literally tomorrow. And it was so helpful to get that specific and to get that personal. And it is hard. You know, yesterday folks were feeling pretty uncomfortable asking these questions over, well, what do you mean I might, kind of like putting themselves in the position of if I died. And I think that alone was really uncomfortable. And there's something about that man, there's just so much need to be gracious and gentle with ourselves as we go and experience aspects of this, engaging in this way where it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't really thought about the reality of me dying. And so that's number one. Number two, once you kind of can get to that other side of, okay, the reality is that I am going to die. So what do I want people to say about me? And so that was that, again, with the example of you're the nucleus, moving out of the concentric circles with the most intimate being closest to you, moving your way out, starting with what's my eulogy on kind of that outer rim? What do I want the impact to be in business? What do I want the impact to be in family? What do I want the impact to be in financial? What do I want the impact to be in travel? And just getting so big picture and just dreaming of who you are at the end of your life and what's said about you, and then moving it in. And it was really helpful for me to do that with family because that's what prompted me to realize that I want to experience epic moments with my parents before they die, before I die. Like I want to live epically with my mom and dad. I love them. They've invested so much into my 5 siblings and me. I want to be able to financially care for them. I want them to just live an amazing, epic end of life. And so as I was thinking about this 3 or 4 weeks ago, I sat there and I was like, you know what? They're going on a sailing trip. They're flying into Rome, going to Europe for their first time, going to 4 different countries. I want to go. The next morning I woke up, I booked a ticket, and less than a week from then I was in Rome. So asking ourselves these questions of what do I want? And how do I want to be remembered? And all of those elements allow for us to have clarity on right now. Y'all, we're writing our legacy. This element of, oh, my eulogies in the future, well, it can also be today. And the decisions we make today allows for us to ultimately be able to have that eulogy said about us in the future. And we have no idea how far out that is. And again, it's not meant to be doomsday of, oh my gosh, we're all going to die. The point is not to fixate on death. The point is to fixate on the here and now and ensure that we're living with so much intention. The dreams that are on our hearts for at the end of our lives of this is what I want to have accomplished are intended to have impact on this very moment because there's this beautiful verse. There's this beautiful verse. It says, delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. And I love that concept of if I am delighting in the goodness and purity of of all that is good, honestly, not just in God, but God is in you and me. God is in the trees, and he made all things, and all things reflect who he is. And so if I am to delight in those things that are good, it's going to shape the inner being of me, and therefore the things which I desire therefore must be of good, integrous intent and origin. And so, therefore, I can pursue those things with a good and pure heart, because if I am mirroring, we always say this, right? And I'm sure you've heard this many, many, many times, that what we see out there ultimately reflects what's in here. And so if everything externally is a mirror, and I'm intentionally looking at and dwelling on that which is good, that's going to change my inner architecture, my inner structure, to be more bent towards that which is pure and beautiful and delightful and wondrous. Like I said at the very beginning of this, we have the opportunity and the power to place our attention and thus our energy on anything. So the question is, well, what am I going to place my attention on? What am I going to expend my energy on? And in so doing, it shapes us and shapes who we are and informs our desires. So if we're desiring that which is good, I really have faith that it's there for a reason. We have those desires for a reason. For some reason, it's life giving to us. For whatever reason, I love acting and I don't know why. And it's just so fun for me. And it's so exciting. The more that I live, the longer that I live in this wonderful world, the more that I see that those who are willing to do the work have the results. Even just the other day, I was talking to a client of mine. We're fractional chief marketing officer for them. And he was talking about how money is effectively the consequence of good behavior. And it was the most simplistic way that I've heard it said. He used to be a professional baseball player. Now he works for this B2B organization. And it was just really interesting to hear it put in that phraseology. And y'all, it's really true. When we're really on the right path, there is blessing that comes with that. That's why this concept of vertical alignment and bringing ourselves under the hierarchical order and structure of, I'm going to live under the ideal which I've identified under the divine. It's this beautiful, okay, if we're shaping and fixating on that which is good and wholesome and effectively what we're called to do, that's going to shape and inform our inner selves and our inner being to then transform our desires, and then we will pursue that which is good effectively. And so these things that we want, man, if we're delighting in all that is wholesome and good, then we can trust our desires. And the reason why that's important for me is because I grew up in a very uh Christian conservative environment where I was effectively told that all my desires are evil. And so that whole element and that whole understanding of, no, like what is in my heart, if I am fixating on that which is good, I can trust that. So asking again and considering again, what do you want for this holiday season? There's so much hope in those pure desires, even if it's seemingly something silly. It was around this time 3 years ago that I got a phone call from this man that I met 9 months before, and he said, "Christine, are you still in the Maryland area?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, I need a wife for this Christmas Hallmark type movie, and I'd love for you to be her." And I was like, "Well, do you want me to audition?" And he was like, "No, I think you'll do great." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "There's no way this is real. This is literally the fulfillment of my childhood dream. This must be a hoax." And then we got on and did a table read 2 weeks later. And then 4 weeks later, we were on set New Year's Day. And it was just the happiest thing. And so I really, really, really believe that if we get clear on what we want and we're willing to do the work to support it, y'all, there is just endless opportunity to be a blessing and to be blessed in return. And it's just waiting for us. There really is this element of like, once we break through the veil and we start seeing the world as it truly is, and the beauty that's there. Today I was just walking out and I was like, man, there's just the vibrancy of color in the flowers. There's just so much goodness if we so choose. And so, with living with intention through the end of the year, 54 days, if you and I were to map this out, and actually I did this for a good bit of 2023, I think it was. Gary Keller and Jay Papasan authored the book called The One Thing. And they effectively equate this concept of the one thing to identifying the lead domino in your life. And science shows that if you knock down, or mathematics shows that if you knock down a lead domino and there's enough dominoes lined up, it has the velocity to knock down the Eiffel Tower. It's that powerful if you line up enough dominoes. And if you just know what the lead domino is and you knock it down, the ripple effect is colossal. So what I did during 2023 was I identified, okay, what's my lead domino? And then I got really, really like microscopic. What is the lead domino just for today? So if we were to say, okay, what's my micro one thing, and identify that for each day, that means we've got 54 one things that we can do through the end of the year. And that's a question for both of us. What is the one thing that, looking at it from the outer rim of those concentric circles with you and I as the nucleus, but then as we move more intimately in, what's the one thing for today? What's the one thing in each one of those pieces of the pie that is effectively the key dominance areas of our lives: financial, family, business, you personally, your health? Y'all, what do you want in each one of those categories? So I'm going to be taking time tomorrow to actually be answering these questions, identifying one of those kind of micro one things, because these questions and these moments are really, really exciting to just wake up to the fact we've got 54 more days, because we hit a reset. We do at the end of the year, and we're entering a new year, and then it's almost free reign. Everyone else is speaking for us. What's the new business strategy? What's the new budget? Everything else is taking up our time, attention, and energy. But right here, right now is ours for us to define, how do I want to live the rest of my life, the rest of the year? But also ask that question, how do you want to live the rest of your life? And so I just really, really encourage us both. This is how I'm going to be spending my day tomorrow. Just kind of doing a retreat and going deep with some of these questions. And I'm curious with what you find. And I'd love to know, what are some questions you're asking you to really help you define what are the kind of the core areas of your life? What do you want in each areas? And what's your micro one thing through the end of the year? So with that, thank you so much for joining me. And